What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by DodgerBlue.com's Blake Williams. Blake, some fun stuff to talk about. Some Dodgers pitching prospects getting to make their major league debuts this season. Of course, I am talking about both Gavin Stone and Bobby Miller, the team's number one and number two starting pitching prospect, Miller being the first and Stone being the second. We've seen two outings from Gavin Stone, one from Bobby Miller. We've had some time to reflect on and digest it a little bit. Let's start with Miller because he was good. 5 innings, 1 earned run, gets his first major league win against the Braves. What stood out to you about Bobby Miller? We knew he could throw 101, but was there something that jumped out to you about the way that he navigated a difficult Braves lineup?
I think the composure stood out to me a bit. He came out in the first inning and he recorded 2 quick outs, but then he fell into some trouble. He kind of lost some command of his fastball and he was leaving it over the middle of the zone, and the Braves ended up scoring a run. But after that, he really settled in and he navigated a tough lineup very well. And I think it was about as good of an outing as you could want from a starting pitcher in their debut, especially against that tough of a lineup. So just positive all around.
Yeah, and in Atlanta as well. So you've got one of the best lineups on the road, major league debut, throw all of it. And by the way, you give up a run in the first inning, but you point out he settled down. He had a runner on second base with nobody out in the third inning, gets a strikeout and a ground out and a fly out to strand him. He has a runner at third with 1 out in the fourth, gets a strikeout there. He strikes out 3 of the last 5 hitters that he ends up facing. The thing that jumped out to me, Blake, was that Miller got better as the game went on. That 5th inning, he gets up to 95 pitches, by the way, which was plus 19 over the longest start he had made at the minor league level this past season. But it was the way that the changeup started to fit. The slider, he started to get better command and placement of that as the game went on. And when you look at the pitch mix, Blake, I mentioned this on the live show we did with AJ. The slider he threw 26% of the time, the changeup he threw 24% of the time, fastball 22, sinker 16, curve 12. So he threw 5 pitches at least 12% of the time. And that 100-mile-an-hour fastball that was still touching 100 into the 5th inning was the 3rd most used pitch. So you can see why people are so high on Bobby Miller. The question is, Blake, do you think it's going to continue to translate? Dave Roberts has said he's got another start coming. Do you think it will continue to translate at the major league level, or does he just need a little bit more refinement still?
I mean, I think it's hard not to say it's going to continue to translate. The stuff is elite, and that's pretty much the scouting report that everyone had on him. Like, the stuff is there. Is his command going to play up? Is he going to be able to maintain that stuff consistently and not lose control of it? But in his debut, he had 1 walk, and that's one of the biggest questions he answered in that outing. Like, he didn't come out, he wasn't phased, and he just looked the part. Like, there's really not much more you can say about him than he was impressive, and that's exactly what you wanted to see from him.
Yeah, when we got to interview him at spring training, I remember one of the last things he said to us was, "Hey, I just want to get up. My dream is to make it to the big leagues, but not just make it there, but stay there and make a contribution." It's hard to say that he didn't accomplish that, at least temporarily, with his first start. On the flip side, the Dodgers' number 2 pitching prospect, Gavin Stone, a guy who, as far as the priority was ahead of Bobby Miller as far as getting his first crack at the major leagues. Unfortunately for Stone, it has been a rough go. 2 starts for him, 8 innings, 13 hits, 7 walks, 9 earned, and 2 strikeouts. I mean, I don't want to pile on to a guy who's probably had a rough couple of weeks as he navigates this, but 20 base runners in 8 innings, 9 earned runs, and oh, by the way, just 2 strikeouts. What is it about Gavin Stone that hasn't quite clicked at the major league level the same way that it's clicked for him at the minor league level?
I think the main thing has been the command. He's probably struggling with some nerves and just it's such a different game when you go from AAA to the major leagues. Like, it's only a 1 level jump, but it's a very significant jump. And his command was kind of always his carrying card, but when he's coming out, he's walking 7 batters. He didn't throw very many competitive pitches to begin with, and that didn't allow him to rack up the strikeout numbers that he was used to in the minor leagues. And when you're in the minors, it's a lot easier to take advantage of the lower level hitters when you miss your spot sometimes.
Yeah.
You can kind of work your way back and get the strikeout still, but against major league hitters, you can't do that too often. So when your command isn't there, you're just not going to have very good outings, and that's what we saw with him.
Yeah, and I would say what's interesting about Stone, I remember looking at his game log down in the minor leagues this season and saying, Exactly what you just said. Like command was kind of his calling card, but even at the AAA level this season, he struggled with commands. 3 walks in his first outing, had a good second outing, but then 4 walks, 1 walk, 2 walks, 2 walks, 2 walks. And even in the two starts that he had in between appearances for the Dodgers, he had 7 walks in 11 innings. So that seems to be something that he was struggling with, maybe at the minor league level, and that it's only dump gasoline on that fire once he gets to the major league level. Do you think Gavin Stone? I mean, I'm not. We're going to see more of him. I think that's a pretty safe bet. The way that this season and injuries to the Dodgers pitching staff has gone, but for a guy that most people thought was the more major league ready of the two, and again, small sample size, 2 starts for Stone, 1 start for Miller, but like, do you feel like he's going to be able to be ready to contribute at some point for the season, this season for the Dodgers? Or do you think, hey, he needs a few more months, let him work a full season in AAA, and then we'll start talking more about him in 2024?
I still have faith in him figuring it out, but it's important to remember that development isn't linear for any player. Like we can all think one guy's more ready, but sometimes it just takes them a little longer to adjust or figure something out. Sometimes pitchers break out way down the line and sometimes they break out sooner. You just never know, and it's hard to project that. It's You have to like remember that projections are always a guessing game with these prospects. You never know what you're going to get with them.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a lot of that right now, but I do still have faith in him figuring it out. Probably getting more comfortable, making some more starts and figuring things out is going to help him. So I think you just have to kind of keep the hope and say that the talent's going to win out.
You just said pitchers are going to break out, and you kind of I had to freeze there in a minute because pitchers are going to break. I mean, we know that's like just your general line around here. So I'm glad break out. Pitchers are going to break out. That's the Blake. That's the type of Blake-ism that I'd like to hear. So maybe more of that and less pitchers are going to break. It's just a suggestion from me to you. I'm with you on Stone, by the way. I have confidence in reading the people that talk about this guy as a prospect and just how much they rave about him. I just find it hard to believe the way that, Rob Hill, when he was on here and talked about what a dog he was and what a gamer he was, that seems like the type of guy I'll bet on being able to bounce back from something like this, even if it ultimately takes him a month or two in the minor leagues of sort of recalibrating himself before, who knows, maybe it's a guy who makes a late season impact for the Dodgers. Remains to be seen. But again, 2 young pitching prospects making appearances for the Dodgers. By the way, this week against the Braves, the Dodgers end up winning both of those games. Not many people would have guessed that one, Blake, that Stone and Miller start for the Dodgers in Atlanta, and the Dodgers are 2-0. That's Blake Williams. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, check out Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. Subscribe, ring the notification bell here as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, and of course, go Dodgers.